next item of business is to establish a quorum, and we have 4 out of 5 members here tonight. Has everybody had a chance to look at last month's minutes? If there's no changes, at this time I entertain a motion to approve minutes as presented.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The next item of business is anybody that plans on speaking at tonight's meeting, would they please stand to be sworn in by Gary?
Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, so help you God?
Thank you very much. We have 3 items tonight on tonight's agenda. A public hearing for 3 variance requests for property located at 623 North State Road 39, Northview Christian Church.
Yes, the petitioner, the Northview Christian Church, has applied for 3 variances, 2 use variances. One is for the construction of a coffee shop and a community center. Those are the use variances that are being requested. And then they are requesting a development standards variance for expansion of illegal nonconforming use. We did have some some people inquire about the project. They came into the office and looked at the plans and looked at everything on file. As stated in the letter, they will be required to do a site plan review if this is approved and moves forward. So now, the petitioner can make his presentation.
Pardon my
My name is Ben Houle. I am a civil engineer with Landworks Engineering out of Indianapolis. And I am here on behalf of Northview Christian Church, along with Nathan Rector, who is also here. And you all know Andy Colt from Comer Law. He's the counsel for Northview Christian on this item. Go ahead. So the requested variances, as Lisa stated, there's a development standards variance that's allowing for a place of worship. The church has been there for a long, long time. This is actually, they're coming up on their 50th anniversary of being here in Danville. And the place of worship is actually grandfathered relatively for the existing building, but because we're doing the expansion on it, it felt right to go ahead and clean that up for the entire property to have the place of worship as well. The use variances, then there are 2. One is to allow for a cafe or coffee shop, which has a limit of 2,000 square feet. So we kind of did that on purpose so as not to allow something that was super large. for a community coffee shop that will be inside the portion of the expansion as part of the church building as well. And then the second one is a use variance to allow for an indoor recreation facility. The indoor recreation facility we'll look at in just a minute or two here. It's essentially an indoor turf field, and then there will also be an indoor kind of playscape, playground for different ages of youth. Go ahead.
Coffee shop going to be open to the public?
The coffee shop and the turf field, the indoor recreation, will be open to the public as well. So just to give you an idea of where we're talking about, I know you all know this, but just to get it in the record, Northview Christian Church sits here right on State Road 39. Just to the west across the street is Danville North Elementary School. There's actually a detention pond for that comes through here and drains underneath our parking lot and out. And then just to the east over here is Orchard Estates. This small green square right here is the expansion area that we're talking about. It's about 24,000 square feet for the expansion. And then you can see a little bit of gray there, a little bit of gray there. That would be some additional parking/drive to be able to offset the parking that we're losing with the building expansion. Go ahead. All right, building elevations. This is kind of some of the pretty stuff. You can see a little bit of it. We got a better view of this at the end, so don't worry, we'll take another look at this. So down at the bottom, let's start there. That would be kind of your view from State Road 39. So the existing church is all the brick over here to the left. And then tying in some of the coloration, some of the pattern, and then also making it a little bit more modern, field house-like, is what they're calling the center, the expansion over here to the right. If you look at this one is actually from the southern parking lot facing the building, and this one would then have the main doors right there off of the parking lot to the south.
Is that the gymnasium there to the right?
No, the gymnasium, there's a future gymnasium that's a potential that might happen. That's not shown on this or on the renderings. We'll see it here in a second with the footprint, though. All right, proposed site layout. So what you see here is that small green rectangle now blown up, so it's on the site there. This is actually overlaid on the landscape plan, so you can see the different trees and plants that are going to go on there as well. But just from a layout perspective, what we're talking about here is the parking down here, the current building expansion, the 24,000 square feet here, the existing worship facility up here, and then I just put this note in here to kind of show the little slot through for the drive-through right there. So that's the extent of it. Right now, from this edge of the building south is parking and is existing parking. So with that offset, we're actually expanding the parking area just a little bit to the south, one more row, to be able to get as many spaces as we had previously. And then there will be some additional green space that'll be here in the middle, and drainage kind of around the south side, and then also here on the east side a little bit as well.
Where's the coffee shop?
The coffee shop, in a second I'll show you the layout of the inside of the building, but it's located kind of right in here. It's just tucked in right there.
So is that drive-through, you can drive through and get coffee, or?
Correct, yep. So that would be dedicated for the coffee shop. Down here you see the existing entrance and exit to State Road 39. Our plan is not to modify that exit or entrance at all, either here or further north on the drive. While we are adding some additional use and asking for variances for those uses, we're not going to add any more traffic than what those handle today. The size of the worship facility isn't going to grow at all. So essentially what happens today is what will happen tomorrow as far as worst case traffic scenario is concerned. Go ahead. All right, from a building use and layout standpoint, so we've rotated a little bit here. Now your parking would be over here to the right. State Road 39 would be down here at the bottom. This yellow is your existing worship facility. And then the green, that's the indoor recreation use that we're talking about adding. Just a little tour of that kind of area. There's some new restrooms over here. This is the indoor playscape, play area. And then up here this would be the turf field with a couple of lanes of running track kind of around that turf field there. Over here is some additional use that can be qualified as a worship area as well, because it's something that's generally used in a lot of churches, is a kitchen to be able to support events that happen over there in the church, as well as a small dining and gathering area. All right, go ahead. All right. So at this time, I think you guys all read the letter of intent that was in your packet from Pastor Rector, and this is just to kind of reinforce that a little bit. Oh, I can do that. Yeah. Do you want to go back to that for a second? Excellent. Yeah, this blue right here is the coffee shop. We're about 1,700 square feet in that coffee shop. I think the limit per zoning code is 2,000. So that's what you're looking at right here. It's kind of just a little behind the counter area here that's the drive-through window right there. And then this is just seating right outside of that area there.
Is that top area, is that going to be where the future gymnasium?
Yes. So you see the dashed line up here. That's the potential future gymnasium. What I would tell you about that is it's relatively far off. I don't think there's any financing or solid plans for it at this point, but they just wanted to make sure that the room was there for it if something came about to do it. So I think the intent behind what they're asking for here today with the use variances is very important in this instance. They've been here and serving the Danville community for 50 years, and they went about this in a very purposeful way of trying to decide what to include in this type of expansion. They could have had a bigger worship center. They could have gone into and done another school or expanded daycare or those types of things as well. Instead, what they wanted to look at was, what is the community of Danville lacking? What does the community need? What are those things that they can help bring the community of Danville, and how do they go about doing that to be able to help serve them for the next 50 years as well? So intentional about making the community better, creating a gift back to the community, and a variety of vibrant needed uses. I don't think there is a drive-through coffee shop in downtown Danville. I'm not sure, actually I know that there's not a indoor recreation facility that's like that. There are gymnasiums, but not a turf indoor. So being able to help provide those things and those uses for people to be able to come in and utilize, or for teams to be able to come in and potentially rent from Danville or those types of things as well. That's kind of what drove them to this. All right, this is the last slide of the presentation here, and this is kind of the rendering, three-dimensional rendering of the southwest corner. So the parking lot would be over here to your right, and this would be the main entry right there. There'd be some outdoor seating and gathering space over here. You can kind of see that little blue standout right there. That's where your drive-through window would be right there. And with that, I'll conclude the presentation. If you have any questions, obviously I'm here, Andy's here, Pastor Rector's here as well. So any questions at all?
The additional parking is the 3 rows that are not in the shaded blue area.
Can I see?
And that's roughly what you're taking out with the new building.
Correct. So right now, you can see where the drive is, and that drive kind of loops around and ends right here on this line. So there's head end right there, but it ends on that line. So we're essentially adding one more row down here than what we had previously. So we're adding,
Well, this shows 3.
let me see.
Well, these are all new. That's roughly what you're taking out. It's a little confusing when your north arrows are facing east. The drawings.
We talked about there, the actual line for that comes right up to this curve, right here. So it's actually, he's parking right here.
Gonna
And
have
then
screening.
those are additional. All of that is just replaced.
We're gonna have screening all around. Around
Correct. Yeah, there's landscape screening here as well as a fence that's here existing. We're going to try to save that fence, but if we can't, it'll go back in that same location right around here. So we may have to take it down or relocate it a little bit.
So to utilize the drive-up window for coffee, you'd have to come in the north entrance, go south.
That's correct. That drive, the intention of that drive is to be one way.
Oh, okay.
What are the planned hours for
I believe it's 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week. There you go. Thank you.
So you don't think you'll have to do anything as far as access for that, or how?
They determine the traffic loading for, as they use the most intense use of the site, which in this case would be a church service. So getting, 200 or 300 vehicles in within 20 minutes is relatively going to trump almost anything that could happen with a coffee shop or having a team come to practice or anything like that.
I do have a question. Have you contacted anybody from NDOT to see if this change in use will require any?
Haven't made contact with NDOT. I can do that during the development plan process.
We will have to have something during the development plan from the state stating that there's no improvements required.
In my experience, I've been doing this 25 years, own my own firm. I've dealt with NDOT on dozens of occasions. They will not give us a letter saying we don't need to do anything. They would require us to submit to them, and then we would be subject to their processes and pieces there. I can talk to them, and I can probably get an email or at least a verbal back from them that we can confirm and do something like that. Yeah, absolutely.
So you're saying that everything's gonna come in the north entrance and out the south,
Correct.
even when you have an event going on at new building?
What I would tell you is we're connecting the north and the south also on the backside, which allows for the one-way traffic in and out, and especially during an event that's very important to be able to have people only come in one direction versus the other.
I know it is.
Oh, yeah.
So people will obey that.
Yeah, that's true.
They still have a preschool out there. Yeah, so they come in the north and go out the south.
Yes. Typically park in that very north lot.
Name and state your name, please. Speak into the microphone. Thank you.
Pastor at Northview. Yeah, typically north entrance, and they use that far north parking lot for their entry.
Just for my edification,
Uh-huh.
the gymnasium that you're showing is not being constructed?
Correct. That's not being constructed at this
Will they
time.
have to come back at a later date?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And I would also like to add, during their site plan review, they are gonna have to show that they meet the landscape buffering requirements from a residential to this type of a use.
But we don't have to be concerned.
Well, the only way is if they can't meet it, then they're gonna have to come back to you. Otherwise,
About that through this process, and we, in this site plan, actually, that's where, how we developed that, so. But yes, we will have to go through that for the DPA.
So really with these three, probably wouldn't be any.
unless you wanted to state, you know, place some restrictions as far as hours or days or something like that, could.
Yes, I would.
Definitely. I agree.
And something definitive. That'll come with the plan.
That will be part of their site plan review.
Gary?
No, I don't think so.
Thank you.
At this time, I'll open it to the public. Anybody that wants to speak on behalf of the public, if you please come forward and state your name and your address.
Debbie Rodney, 314 North Point Court. I live in the condos just south of it. I think it all looks nice and all, but the only concern that we would have is that on the drawings, it does show landscape trees of some sort. Just depending on what kind of trees that is how much that's really going to blind off lights of parking, you know, the cars parking there and the lights flashing in and noise as well. I know they do have that screen on a couple places. We originally lived on the east side there and now live on the south side. But they have those screens there, and I think that preference would be that they would have some type of barrier there. Just trees themselves are not going to stop that light coming into the back of our condos. So I think that's the, you know, the biggest concern is that who actually says you have to put that type of barrier there and who actually enforces that.
And I think that would come in the next step and not part of what we're doing, okay?
Okay.
Correct, Lisa, on that?
Yes, and there are requirements for, because this is kind of a commercial use, so there are some buffer yard standards and requirements that they have to meet, which would incorporate evergreen trees and deciduous trees as well, to provide that buffer.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Please come forward. Also state your name and your address.
Mark Nardine, 508 Appleway Drive.
I didn't recognize you, Mark.
We live right just east of the parking lot. One concern I have is the drainage. When they filled that property in and expanded the parking lot, that drainage comes right down into our yard. And there's very, very poor drainage that goes south to north. I know our yard gets wet and the adjacent property gets wet along there, so I'd be concerned about that. And I also echo the lighting part of that. Even with the existing fence, it's not tall enough to block lights, and yet it's far enough off the ground that the headlights shine into our house at nighttime. I think the fence needs to be revamped to help shelter the lights that are coming in there.
Thank you. Again, would that be a site plan?
Yes, I mean, they will, you know, that does play into the landscaping, but they'll also have to address lighting. So if they're proposing to put additional pole lights in the parking lot, they'll have to meet the requirements for height, light dispersion.
Would that meeting be a good time for the people to come back to and
Yes,
voice
and-
their concerns? So please keep that on with your concerns to come back to that meeting. Not so sure we've got much to do with that part of it tonight. Okay, does anybody else want to speak on tonight's meeting? This time, I'll close it to the public and open board members here for discussion. If there's no discussion, entertain motion on each one separately.
I'll make a motion. I move, can I take this off? Would that be okay? Glasses fog up.
I know.
Are we doing two of these on one?
No.
Yes, both use variances are,
Okay.
but you have separate
There's three motions. I move that we approve the use variance sought by petitioner Larry Thompson on behalf of Northview Christian Church in BZA petition number 20-45 to allow a coffee shop to be established in a R1 zoning district. Subject property is located at 623 North State Road 39. The petition has satisfied the requirements for variances under the state law for the following reasons. One, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community for reasons stated in the proposed findings of facts, petitioner's proposed findings of fact. Two, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner for the reasons stated in the petitioner's proposed findings of fact. Three, the need for the variance does arise from some condition peculiar to the property, or does not arise.
Sorry.
The third one,
Need for the
variance
variance.
does not arise
Right,
from,
that's correct.
from some condition peculiar to the property involved for the reasons stated in the petitioner's proposed findings of fact. Four, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will constitute an unnecessary hardship if applied to the property for which the variance is sought for the reasons stated in the petitioner's proposed findings of fact. Five, the approval does not interfere substantially with the town's comprehensive plan for the reasons stated in the petitioner's proposed findings of fact. And I move that this approval be made with no conditions.
This time, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, at this time, we have a second. Gary, if you would, please.
A roll call vote. Dr. Swords?
Aye.
Mr. Tressi?
Aye.
Thompson? Aye. I vote aye. Motion carries 4-0.
It is therefore the decision of this body that this variance petition is approved, subject to the conditions, which there were none. No, Tommy.
Hey, Lynn? That's for a bottle of water.
Here's one here.
It's not cold, is it? No.
Okay, the next item of business for petition number 20-46. Do we have a motion?
I would move that we approve the use variance sought by petitioner Larry Thompson on behalf of Northview Christian Church in BZA petition number 2046 to allow a community center to be established in the R1 zoning district. The subject value property in location at 623 North State Road 39. The petition has been satisfied the requirements for the variance under the following reasons. The approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, and welfare of the community for the reasons stated in the petitioner's proposed finding of fact. And the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner for the reasons stated in petitioner's proposed finding of fact. 3, the needed for the variance does not arise from some peculiar to the property involved. Reasons stated in the petitioner's proposed finding of fact. And the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will not constitute an unnecessary hardship if applied to the property for which the variance is sought for the reasons stated in the petitioner's proposed finding of fact. And the approval does not interfere substantially with the town's comprehensive plan for the reasons stated in the petitioner's proposed finding of fact.
Could I make a clarification before you go any further? On item number 3, the need for the variance should be, does arise from a condition peculiar to the property involved on the last 2 motions.
Also, number 4 should be will not, shouldn't
It will constitute an unnecessary hardship.
it? It will not. So
Okay.
it'd be will.
Thank you for that correction.
Did you read 5?
Yeah.
Thought I did.
Yes. So are there any conditions or anything?
No conditions.
This time we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Gary, if you would, please.
On a roll call vote, Dr. Swords?
Aye.
Mr. Tessie?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson? Aye. I vote aye, motion carries 4-0.
Decision of this body that this variance petition is approved, subject to the conditions imposed, which there were none. The next item is petition number 20-47.
I move that we approve the variance sought by Larry Thompson on behalf of Northview Christian Church, petitioner in BZA petition number 20-47, to allow the expansion of a legal nonconforming use in an R1 zoning district. This petition has satisfied the requirements for variances under state law for the following reasons. The approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Item B, for the reasons stated in petitioner's proposed finding of fact. The use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Item B, for the reasons stated in petitioner's proposed finding of fact. 3, the strict applications of the term of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. B, for reasons stated in the petitioner's proposed finding. And I move that this approval be made subject to the following conditions. I had no condition.
This time we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Have a second, please. Gary, if you would, please, again.
Dr. Swords?
Aye.
Bessie?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson? Aye. I vote aye, motion carries 4-0.
Is therefore the decision of this body that this variance petition is approved, subject to those to which there were none. Thank you very much.
Three. I three. Young kids went through Mother's Day out. Now it's sunshine.